In this video, we'll look at the basics of creating a drag and drop question. We'll do this by creating a simple text question that asks students to match countries with their capital cities. For this demonstration, I'll create the question in a test so we can preview the online test and try the question out. Generally, I create my drag and drop questions in a test so I can try them out as a student. Then I'll move them to a question set later if necessary. We'll start by creating a new drag and drop question and adding some text to the question. The drag and drop dialog box looks a little different from most other questions. You still have the tabs along the top that allow you to add rationale and other question information. But instead of a word processor window, you have a canvas where you can lay out the elements of the question. Along the bottom of the window, there is a set of buttons that allow you to insert the different components of the question. We're going to start by adding the directions for the questions. To do that, let's click Add Text. A text box is inserted into the question. We can use the Text Options section of the Properties pane to enter and format the text. I'll type the instructions for the question. Next, I'll set the font to 14 point so the text is easier to read. I'll use the resize handle at the right of the text box to expand it so the text doesn't wrap. Above the insert buttons is a palette that allows you to align elements of the question in relation to the entire canvas and in relation to one another. The first group of buttons allows you to align one or more elements on the canvas. You can align elements to the left, right, top, bottom, or center. I'm going to align the instructions to the top left of the canvas. I'll start by clicking the top Align button. Next, I'll click Left Align. If you need more space when you're working on your question, you can hide the palette by clicking the Collapse button. And you can show the palette again by clicking the Expand button. We've added the instructions for the question. Now let's build the actual interactions. A drag and drop question is made up of draggable items and target areas. You link the draggable items to the target areas to indicate the correct pairs. In our question, we're going to have capital cities that are draggable items and countries that are target areas. Let's click Add Draggable to insert our first city. In the text field, I'll type Ottawa. Next, I'm going to increase the font to 14 point. Under General Options, you can adjust the box size. You can select from a variety of preset dimensions, or you can enter custom dimensions. These dimensions apply to all the draggable items and target areas. For this question, I'm going to select 150 by 75. I'm going to move this item a little to the left. When I select the item, notice that the trash can appears. So if you need to delete an item, simply select it and drag it to the trash. Let's add the second draggable item. Notice that the system remembers the font change I made when I create a new item. Now I enter the text for the second draggable item, and then I'll add the third capital. Next, I'm going to roughly arrange the draggable items. I'll use the options in the alignment palette to get the items arranged the way I want them. First, I'm going to align the Ottawa item with the left margin. Then I'll select London and align it with the right margin. Now that I have the Ottawa and London items aligned to the left and right margins, I want all 3 elements aligned along their top edges. I'll start by selecting the 3 draggable elements. To select multiple elements, click one of them and then Control-click or Shift-click the other elements you want to select. When you have multiple items selected, the second group of buttons in the alignment palette are enabled. These buttons allow you to align elements in relation to one another. You can align left, align right, align top, and align bottom. When using these alignment buttons, the items will always be aligned with the element that is the furthest in the direction you're aligning. So if you're aligning elements to the left, they will be aligned with the element that is the furthest to the left. Let's click Align Top to be sure that all the capital cities are in a straight line. There's one final bit of alignment that I want to do. I want to make sure that Cairo is evenly spaced between the other 2 capitals. I've aligned the other 2 capitals to the extreme left and right to make this easier. The last 2 buttons in the alignment palette allow you to distribute items evenly, horizontally, or vertically. These are only enabled when you have 3 or more items selected. To get my draggable items evenly spaced, I'm going to click Distribute horizontally. Now we're ready to create the drop targets that match our draggable items. You can create drag and drop questions that have the same number of draggable elements and targets. You can create questions that have more draggable items than targets. You can also create questions where the draggable items are reused to match multiple targets. We're creating a simple drag and drop where there are 3 draggable items that match 3 targets. I'm going to click Add Drop Target 3 times to insert the targets I need quickly. Next, I roughly arrange the targets. Now I'll follow the same steps I used with the draggable items. I'll align one target to the left and one to the right, then align all 3 items along their top borders before distributing them horizontally. To be sure everything is laid out the way I want it, I'll click the Preview tab. Keep in mind that this is just an image of the question. It's not an interactive preview. We'll see how to preview it so we can interact with it in a little bit. Let's click the Question tab so we can label the drop targets. Each of these drop targets are for a country. So let's add text for the drop targets. I'll start with Canada. I'm going to change the font size to 14 point and the justification to center. I'm going to roughly place the text under the first drop target. Now I'll add the labels for Egypt and the United Kingdom and place them under the other 2 drop targets. Finally, I'll arrange my labels the same way I arranged the drop targets. I've set up my questions so that each draggable item is directly above its matching drop target. By default, drag and drop questions are set to automatically scramble the draggable items. That allows you to set up the question so the draggable items and their matching targets are across from one another. If you deselect this option, be sure that you arrange the draggable items and targets so that the correct matches aren't directly across from each other. To match a draggable item with a drop target, just drag it and drop it on the target. I'll drag Ottawa to Canada. When a draggable item is matched with a target, there will be an arrow connecting the two. Next, I'm going to drag Cairo to the United Kingdom so we can see how to fix a mistake. Cairo should be matched with Egypt, not the United Kingdom. To fix an error like this, select the draggable item and then click Break Link. Now I can drag Cairo to the Egypt drop target. Finally, I'll drag London to the United Kingdom drop target. Now that we have all of the elements of the question done, let's take a quick look at the grading options before we preview the question. Let's click the Answer and Grading tab and look at the options we have. By default, drag and drop questions are automatically scored when they're given online. You do have the option to grade them manually if you want. You can also give partial credit for drag and drop questions. If you select Allow Partial Credit, the number of points should be evenly divisible by the number of correct answers. The system will not award partial points. In my example, there are 3 correct answers. So if I want to award partial credit, the point value of the question should be a multiple of 3. I'm going to change the point value to 3 and then select Allow Partial Credit. I'll click OK to save the question. If you're working on a complicated drag and drop question, it's a good idea to click OK periodically to save your question. It's also a good idea to preview the question as a student to make sure it works and grades as you expect it to. Just a reminder, I built this question in a test because you can preview a test but not a question set. If I need this in a question set, I can always move it there later. Let's click the test menu. And then click Preview Online Test. First of all, notice that even though I put the capital cities directly above the matching countries, they have been scrambled automatically. Let's drag the cities to the correct countries. Now let's click Check to be sure it grades properly. It does, so let's click OK. And that's a quick overview of drag and drop questions. You can use the principles in this video to create everything from simple text matching questions like this example to complex labeling questions as well.